Ken Rosenthal decided to go on foul territory and mention an issue that has been lingering in the background that people agree with and don't agree with, and I think it all stemmed from the Ohtani deal, and then also all of this delay that we're seeing from the Boris Corporation, I guess you can say, his agenda where he's been holding up the signings of everything to get all of his clients more money, which makes him more money, which is strategic and makes sense, perfectly legal, but it is very frustrating for the teams and for the fans that really want to see movement during this offseason. Welcome everybody to the Touching Bases podcast, and today we are going to be touching a little bit on the signing deadlines for the offseason. Now this is, I'm not talking about deferrals, I'm not talking about how much people can make or anything like that, or any salary caps. I don't think we should go down that route because I'm not a player, and as a fan, I don't think that we should be limiting on how much we should be paying players. I think that should be up to the teams and up to the players themselves to value their performances and their skill set and let that be up to them. I don't think that's something that us fans and observers or reporters or anything should have a say in there, because value is very subjective. Let's put it that way. But getting into it, Ken Rosenthal, like I said, was talking, I believe today or yesterday on Pal Territory about kind of the issue with a signing deadline during the offseason. He talked to an agent, and the agent basically told him that it puts a squeeze on the players like they would do like with draft picks. So it further restricts the market. That's the agent's argument. Now, granted, there's also another side of this where if you put a signing deadline on, that cuts off the time frame for agents to get their players signed, which means they are the ones who make the money, which means that they're losing money if they don't get their players signed, versus not having a deadline like there currently is, like Snell, Montgomery, Soler, Justin Turner, all these guys, where they don't sign, there's still an open window for opportunity, and all they have to do is play some cards right, like maybe talking up the market, leaking who's interested in them, leaking how much money they want, how much they're worth, and then creating competition in order to get those contracts higher, which makes the agent more money, which makes the player more money, which raises the standards as far as what players make based on their position and their abilities, which costs team more money, which in return causes teams to have to increase their cost for soda, beer, food, tickets, parking, all that craziness. Fucking dogs. So long story short, as a fan, all the deadlines would do is force players to take the money if they're afraid of not getting signed by the deadline, and means that it would save teams money in the long run, which the flip side is that we've come to show, like in a video I'm going to be mentioning as far as the Oakland A's and a lot of these other owners that are very cheap and not putting the money back into the club, is it's saving them money to pocket all the profits a little bit more. So there's a double-edged sword here, where either way, I think the fans are the ones getting gypped, and I guess the one thing that we don't want is add a deadline to where the fans are getting screwed and the players are getting screwed. Does that make sense? I don't know. Comment below, because I'm pretty sure I lost half of you. Another aspect that I really should point out is, like, look at the players that have a large market. They're going to get signed sooner because there's an incentive for teams to go after them before that deadline and sign them. Now, how does that make sense? If you would take Blake Snell and he says he's worth $100 or $250 million for a 5-year deal or a 10-year deal. I'm not saying he's saying this. I know he wants a lot of money. I don't know the figures in front of me. It's just an example. If there's a deadline for when he signs there in the offseason, then the teams that actually need to fill a starting position spot, they then have to get Snell on the radar, talk to him in person, try to work out a deal along with other teams that are interested as well in order to try to sign him before it's too late. Now, that means that the teams now have to hyper focus on those certain players that they want. Whoever doesn't win out, it's like on eBay. You want a special item, but you can't get that item because someone outbid you by the time of that deadline when that auction ends. That's kind of how it's going to be with players. Now, the ones with high value, they're going to be competing rapidly to sign that player before the deadline, and it's going to get them the money that they want. Now, the problem is, what about those players that are not high value? Or maybe they are high value, but they're not high up on the list. JD Martinez, Chapman, Merrifield, maybe even Soler or Tommy Pham, guys that are talked about, but they're not number one priority. And because of that, those guys may just not even get the time or recognition from the teams to actually negotiate a deal. or it's going to cost more teams more money to hire people to negotiate contracts to then sign them. But at the same time, a deadline squeezes them. So either the players want to get on a team and play and have guaranteed money, but at the same time, teams also don't want to pay a certain amount of money, so they might hold back, but they're also in competition with other teams. This is where it's a double-edged sword, because if there's no other teams interested in, let's say, Whit Merrifield, then they can offer them whatever they want, and by that deadline, if they don't accept, squeezes the players and they have to accept that contract, or just be a free agent the whole season or until after spring training. I don't know the exact details as far as what are the limitations of a signing deadline, how late that goes, or when they can actually sign again. That could be mid-season. I have no idea. But it's just not a good idea, in my opinion, because it hurts us if we don't have a deadline and makes us wait impatiently, but it also hurts the players and could hurt the teams if there is a deadline. And I think either way, fans are eating up the cost. Another issue is teams with a lot of money, let's say the Yankees, the Dodgers, the Mets, and the Giants. They have a little bit more cap space and they have more availability because their owners are either make more money and are able to contribute more to the team as far as their payroll. Those guys are going to have a little bit more options because if there's a deadline, they can sign all those guys really quick, get who they want, and then they're done. Where other teams that maybe don't have a large payroll, let's say Oakland, who is the worst, or Orioles, who have I believe the second worst payroll, or second, I shouldn't say worst, but lowest, or even the Mariners, put it that way, where they need time to clear cap room, like the Mariners did. They got rid of Jared Kelenic, they got rid of Gino Suarez, they got rid of Teoscar Hernandez, they got rid of Robbie Ray. They needed the last month and a half, 2 months, to clear that space so that they have money to spend. And if you give an incentive for those teams with a lot of money that also want those same players, they have the cap room, they have the money to actually go get them before that deadline. Because now they feel like, oh, we need to go after them before it's too late, before these other teams have the opportunity to go after them. That way they can offer them contracts at a lower amount, save themselves money, and the players, they don't know if the teams are even going to offer them a contract later on, so they might take the first one that they get because they know that they have to wait on the team to trade away players that's still up to a whole nother organization to accept those deals. It becomes very complicated, and because it's harder to predict versus having no deadline, letting the players wait it out and get whatever they want to get. Either way, they're probably going to accept a deal come spring training or maybe even the beginning of the season. Whether or not they're ready, that's a whole nother story, but at least they're not squeezed, the teams aren't squeezed, and then the fans can be outspoken about the player's decision and the team's decision versus having the MLB come down and tell them, hey, you need to do this before this time or you get nothing. That's kind of my stance on it. Does that make sense? Again, let me know in the comments. Whatever your arguments are, you might be for a deadline. I'm just going to leave you guys with this. Happy players play better. They perform. So if you want a stressed out player that's going to a team that he's not exactly sure he wants to play for, but it's the only contract he has, don't expect that player to perform at his best. Blake Snell had a restriction as far as a deadline when he had to sign, let's say it was a week ago, and he turned down a large contract for the Yankees, but he's been saying he wants to play for Seattle, but Seattle doesn't have the cap room yet to do it. He's not going to be a happy player no matter how much money he's making because he's not where he wants to be. Money is one thing, but let's be honest. If you're making $100 million, you're living life fine. You have everything you can need. The biggest thing is being home, being with family, and playing for a team that you've always loved. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.